Hi, I'm Jeff Hughes, and welcome to the Continuous Testing Academy, where we provide tutorials, insight, and content to help you with your people, processes, and technologies associated with continuous testing. Today we're going to talk about the topic of what is continuous test data management. First of all, a definition of test data management in general. Test data management is the practice of applying a structured and centralized approach to the management of test data to reduce the cost while increasing the efficiency and quality in development and testing. So basically the bottom line is it's bringing structure to how you find and manage and deliver test data for your environments. And so today we want to talk about this continuous testing type of process as it relates to continuous test data management. Now, what are the goals of test data management? Well, basically it is to deliver the right data to the right place at the right time and in the right format. And so this requires a number of steps to be successful. First of all, you want to understand where your sensitive data exists on your network. So you're going to need some tools to be able to identify that data. Second, improve test data regulatory compliance. That certainly is in the forefront of all kinds of news most recently. Third, we want to reduce dependency from production data. So we want to move away from using just production data to generating our own test data that mimics the real-world test data that you have. Fourth, we want to improve test data quality. And so we want to make sure that the data that you're using includes not only the right data, but outliers such as negative values and other values of test data that could trip up or cause the application to fail, because you want to test for those outliers. And so you need test data that's going to take into account these different types of scenarios. Next, we want to reduce the cost of associated with provisioning test data. We all know that test data is expensive to generate, especially if we're doing it manually. And then the last area is we want to improve test data availability. So all of these things factor into having a test data management solution that is known as continuous test data management. So let's take a look at this diagram here where we're going to delve into each of these areas of a complete test data management solution. What we recommend is that your company take a service-oriented approach to test data management. Now, what does that mean? It basically means that you're allowing your testers, the end users, if you will, to be able to access the data that they need, the test data, when they need it, where they need it, and in the formats that they need it in. So having this self-service type of approach is going to speed up the process and help you realize this goal of continuous test data management. And so in the diagram here you have some Scrum teams. These teams have testers associated with them. They're looking to gather test data for their particular needs. And so then there's a bottleneck usually there because they're waiting for the test data. They don't have it in the right formats that they need, and they can't get it efficiently and quickly. And so you have a series of production databases. You need the ability to pull that data into these from production into these different areas of the self-service architecture, and then be able to manipulate and manage that data for the needs of all these different testing teams and testers. And each of their needs may vary. One team may need a very specific set of data to test a particular application. Another team might need a different set of data for their needs. Not every tester is going to need the same data for their particular testing purposes. And then it depends on what types of tests are being done. You know, you might have unit or component type of testing. You might be doing integration testing. You might be doing user acceptance testing as shown on the diagram on the right. And so you have to have the ability to find and create those different types of test data. So first of all, we recommend a solution that has standardization. Okay. Now by that I mean you have a standardized way that testers can request data, and they can manage the test data and get the test data delivered to them. If the process is changing constantly, or you're doing this manually, it's very, very difficult to realize gains in performance and to achieve this idea of continuous test data management. So you want to have a standardized process that will improve reusability of the test data and will remove inefficiencies within the process. Next is an automated delivery. As I mentioned before, depending on the different types of tests that your testers are doing, they'll need automated delivery to reduce the wait times. So much time is wasted as testers wait to have test data delivered to them. And that's a real bottleneck in terms of being able to produce applications, test applications, and get those applications out into the market. Next, you want to have a mature test data management solution via test data governance. So who is using the test data? Who has access to it? What is the version of that test data, and so on? All of these areas focus around this idea of test data governance, really having a handle on who's using the test data, when are they using it, where are they using it, and so on. So your tool needs to be able to provide you with that data governance type of information. You also want to be sure to reduce security risks, especially when you're moving production data into a testing environment. Now, in previous versions or episodes of the Continuous Testing Academy, we talked about data compliance and data privacy and regulations such as the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. These regulations are forcing companies to take a much closer look at how they're managing their test data and how they're using it. So you want a system that will be able to reduce the liabilities and the security risks associated with using test data. And then you want to reduce the environment provisioning and maintenance time. And by that we mean you want a system that can work across multiple environments. Perhaps you have test data that you need on a mainframe, or test data across different applications or different databases that you're using across your distributed environments. And so your tool and the system needs to be able to reduce the friction of provisioning and maintaining those test data environments. It also means having the ability to set up tests very, very quickly in changing environments, so that if you have to reset test data and redo tests over and over again, that your system has the ability to do that quickly and in an automated fashion. Again, saving time for all of the testers, the test data engineers, and those that are involved in procuring test data. Now here's an example. In this graphic here, we're showing what continuous test data management looks like. So what this system does is it helps automate many of these processes that we've talked about in terms of finding the right data and then being able to manage or manipulate that data and then deliver the test data to the testers that need it. So this is what we call the continuous test data management cycle. So if you look over here on the right-hand side, we were talking about testers that are doing unit component integration or UAT testing, acceptance testing, and they have specific needs for certain test data. And so they can put in a request using a self-service type of model, be able to put in a request to a portal and ask for the test data that they need in the formats that they need it in, and get that data delivered to them instantly if it's available, or to be able to have a request, submit a request to deliver the test data that they need in a very timely manner. And so they really are the consumers of the test data. Now on the other side of the model is the test data engineers, and they are the ones that deliver the test data to the testers. They've been tasked with that responsibility. So any tools that are going to help them to find that test data quickly is going to be to their advantage and improve overall efficiencies for the company in general as they release applications. So let's take an example. You have a bank, and the bank is producing an application. They've added some new features to that application. They need to do additional testing to make sure that those features are working properly. So on the left-hand side, they are looking at production data. They have some production data that represents banking customers. So these are usernames, account numbers, addresses, perhaps balances, and so on. Whatever data is associated with that particular user, they would pull that from production into a testing environment. So the tool has to have the ability to not only talk to relational databases, but also non-relational databases, be able to identify those structures, and be able to consume that data from the production environment. The next step is, what do they do with that data once they pull that in? So the banking application has requested some production data. They pull that in, and the next thing they need to do is mask that particular data. So there's things known as in-place masking, which basically means that data can be masked without transporting or moving the data over to another location. On-the-fly masking, there's mainframe masking. There's the ability to do data extraction and data load facilities, all with the effort, with the idea to move that data from one location to another and then change its structure and its format. Now, some companies will look to do what is known as cloning or quick provisioning. And so a gold copy of the database will be created, or a subset of the database, and then that gold copy is used as a virtualized test database. So the process for the bank would be, they pull some data from production, they mask it. In other words, they change the format of that data so it's non-recognizable, and then they create a gold copy. That gold copy is then virtually made available to all of the testers in that particular group that need a copy of that data. So that's known as test data virtualization. Some of the tools that are out there provide that capability to do test data virtualization. Other companies don't do that or don't have that capability. Other vendors don't have that capability to do that particular functionality. Another area is data discovery, analysis, and management. So let's say that that banking application has requested some test data, they pull it in, and they've done an analysis on the test data. Okay, so a test data management tool that has the ability to analyze the data to see whether that is the right data with the right coverage that they need. And so a company may discover, this bank may discover, hey, we pulled in the test data, but it's not exactly all of the data that we need, or it's missing some of the pieces of data that we need to do to successfully test. At that point, a company will look to generate test data synthetically. And so a company may have part of the test data they need, but now they need to fill in the gaps using synthetic test data creation. So that's another option around this idea of continuous test data management. Having the ability to find test data, analyze and review the test data, add to the test data, and then deliver that test data to the testers that need it. And having this in an automated fashion, a self-service type of portal, is really going to help you to achieve this concept of continuous test data management. So, and then the last area is the test data find and reserve capability. So testers can use functionality such as find and reserve to locate the test data and reserve that test data for their particular use, so that when the data is used, or is reserved for that particular test, they're not competing with other testers to use the test data, the existing test data that's out there. There's nothing worse than having multiple teams competing and using the same test data and burning up the test data, as they say, and then not being able to use the test data until it's reset for their particular test. Again, there's a slowdown there, a bottleneck, when you're competing for existing test data. So this gives you kind of an idea of the different areas of finding test data, evaluating test data, and then manipulating the test data, and then delivering that test data to the testers that need it. So it's this whole process, or this scenario, that brings us to having a successful test data management solution, or a continuous test data management capability that we've discussed here. The three takeaways to achieving continuous test data management are: first, the ability to find the test data that you need. So having a tool that can find test data where it resides, either in a distributed environment or on a mainframe, is very important. Second, having the ability to manipulate that test data. So being able to change the format of the data, or adding to the test data synthetically, so that you have a complete test data scenario for the application that you're testing. And then third is the ability to deliver the test data into the hands of the testers that need it. I want to thank you for joining us in this segment today on how to achieve continuous test data management. We will be providing other tutorials and information associated with this presentation that will help you in your journey to learn more about DevOps and continuous testing. Thank you for joining us.